Welcome aboard, everybody. This is Trekyards. I'm Captain Foley.
I got guns.
He is. And we're going to be talking about a new Romulan ship that we got in Strange New Worlds.
The first TOS-ish, although it's a Strange New Worlds visual update era version, but in theory, the first Romulan warship of the TOS era we've ever seen. So we had the experimental ship, although then they're also in this fleet as just normal ships, which is kind of, I mean, it's not experimental. Oh well. And a flagship. This is the first standard warship. But this first view, they came in droves.
Yeah, the Romulan fleet showed up, about 20 of them, maybe-ish. And there was 3 different classes of ships here. So we've already talked about the regular bird of prey. We've talked about the Praetor's flagship. Now we're going to talk about the other one, which is quite an interesting design, actually.
Yes, and with other ships to kind of pull from, both now in their own fleet, also TNG Enterprise, etc. Let's see what they did. So it's really kind of hard to see, though. In this view, you kind of see the shapes. So what I did the next view, I went through all different views, all different shots, and I pulled them all into one big image, so it kind of shows. And I also photoshopped out other ships if they were next to them to try and create a clear silhouette. So all of them been slightly photoshopped to make it clear. So here you go. Here is many views to give you a sense of what the hell it looks like.
And I love it. This invokes a lot of FASA vibes in me. There was a lot of FASA Romulan ships designed, and this has like a winged defender kind of look. Like they definitely borrowed for some of those ideas. Again, keeping that bird motif. Yeah, I'm actually quite impressed. I really like this design and would like to see more of it at some point. But
yes. Now, how does it compare to the last new Romulan ships we saw in Star Trek Picard? That being the small warship and the big flagship warship, and then the snake bite, whatever it was, ship.
It definitely keeps the Romulan aesthetic, and it does feel TOS-y, this one. How it compares, it's as good. I mean, some of those designs were pretty alright. The Snakehead one, not so much. But the main like little scout shippy thing was fine.
They're a bit generic, though. They didn't have the artist spark of like a Valdor or certainly a Daredex. This, I think, has a bit more oomph to it in terms of design. Has a bit more of a inspiredness, which is funny because the nacelles are both very similar and yet not to the bird of prey. Even have glowing grills. That's a nice surprise.
Indeed, yeah. The upswept wing thing, like I said, wing defender. There's a lot of FASA designs you could draw. I think they drew a lot of inspiration from some of that stuff.
I don't think they looked at it for a second. I think they totally just kit bashes together personally.
I don't know. I think somebody at least knew about FASA because there are some shapes here that are very similar. The one issue that I have is from the side when you look at the windows, it looks like there's a shit ton of windows, like 1,000 decks. They really didn't do the scale of those windows justice. I think there's just a texture maybe they threw on or something, but unfortunately that breaks it a little bit. It looks bigger than a Daredex. But each one of those is a deck.
Yep, and that means those nacelles are like bigger than a Connie, height-wise. I mean, the Connie's only, 22 decks, and yes, you can see there's visibly at least 50, 60, which means the nacelles are about... I mean, yeah, that's entirely broken, and it means the flagship would have to be, insane size, and scale's very important in Star Trek, because there's a certain gradient of scale that sort of works. You don't get too big, because it just becomes inflated, so everything kind of stays in its own little medium. Then you have the JJ and onwards, where they kind of inflate the scales, and it becomes just a bit silly. Then you look at, well, how many crew do you need, and how many shuttles do you need, and why they're 50,000 weapons, and bigger becomes better, even though the Defiant was far smaller, far more powerful, far more creative. Voyager was smaller than Enterprise D. It was about creating more advanced, smaller / sleeker. Having this be medium size works well, but yeah, I think you have to kind of ignore the wings, the windows, because that is entirely broken. It only kind of shows up in that one side view. Everything else, they're entirely lost.
I mean, we've already done videos on the other two, so go check those out if you haven't, guys. But this almost feels bigger than the flagship if you really take into account those windows, which we're not going to, because, yeah, the other views don't show them. And
well, we know they were told not to design things that had an evolutionary path with other TOS or TNG. It was Zone thing exclusively, so I don't think they'd looked at anything. Because it's both is Romulan and isn't. There's a certain Romulanist to it, but all the shapes are so sharp that make it feel like nothing like anything we've seen before in this era. But I kind of like it as its own unique thing. And you're right, because the nacelles, because of the simple shapes, it feels more TOS. Also, it's a very hard balance, this sort of thing. You know, Enterprise was very, very, the one ship we saw was very, very sleek and sexy in a way, and odd, but also so far back. This is back to just simple shapes again, so that helps. I think what kind of works for me is that it has a juxtaposition-y sense of shapes. You've got this, you know, half a triangle front beak, which is very thin and unwieldy, not elegant and beautiful like the Pterodex. It's kind of is what it is. You've got the circle curved underbelly, which kind of gives it that bird motif. It takes it away from just the mechanicalness of a spaceship. Then you've got the very much more familiar nacelles, which help ground into the era. And then you've got, which I think the pylons are just nicked from the bird of prey. I mean, that top left, if you took out the whole bit, that's just a bird of prey with slightly altered nacelles. So it's pulled from its own design aesthetic, but also, yeah, I think it all kind of connects quite well. But also still being kind of kitbash vibe, which is what TOS is, as in everything else of the fleet.
Yeah, I mean, had this one have shown up in Enterprise, I would have felt a lot better about the Romulan appearance in Enterprise, because this would feel more era appropriate for that.
More
yeah,
rustic.
The one in Enterprise is very sleek, very like a TNG era bird of prey design, a little bit too advanced. This would have been much better there, actually. But I'm glad this is included in Stranger Worlds, because this is the time of TOS, the cylindrical nacelles, the kind of simple hull textures, and those simple shapes.
Unless you watch Stranger Worlds, then massively complicated hull textures.
Well, you know what I'm saying, though. Just talking about the TOS era, that's how it should work. So yeah, there's a lot that fits in this time period in this design, and I really like it. So wish we would have seen a little bit more of it. But
yeah, it was never given a hero.
No, spent the time to make the model, so kudos to them. Thank you, guys.
I mean, you can tell it's a very simple model. I mean, already you can see the details are broad and most textured. I mean, that's what Pixelmono tends to do. They tend to make very, very simple ships, heavily textured, versus the olden days of Trek, where they really, you know, Pierre Droulet often said that he was never told which ship of any given show was going to be important and how many shots was going to be in. So every ship he made to be almost a hero mesh in case. And so that's why a lot of those models stand up far better than they should do, because they're built better. You know that this company kind of does to the only as far as they need to go, because they're a professional company working on like 50,000 things. Trek is just a company, it's just a client to them. You feel that all throughout. I mean, look at the 31st century ships of Discovery. They're beyond simple builds. I mean, they're excruciatingly simple. So, it feels basic. It feels very, 2004 detail level. But that works for TOS. It's kind of it's a lucky accident / some of its parts sort of vibe.
I approve. I like it.
And if you go back to the first picture as well, 3 very unique silhouettes, which is quite important, I think. And you can kind of see even more clear without that sheen, the way the back part of it goes up. It feels like a bird in motion. And yet, because the wing sweep is so similar to the bird of prey, it maintains that feel and incorporates the very touch of a Pterodex head. So it's kind of almost best from the side. But yeah, the windows are beyond broken. That's hundreds of decks. That's awful. My God.
Yeah. And
far
in the first
more.
picture, you can see it compared to the flagship there, which we did talk about the windows on the flagship. There's it looks like a luxury liner at sea.
It's like that is like the Pterodex vibed. But it's like, yeah, it's the flagship, it's giant. Yeah, they definitely messed up the texture on that, because they're totally broken. But as a fleet, I love the fact there's totally different aesthetics. Classic, straightforward shapes work, more intricate, varied shapes, hugely bird, aggressive shape, but still kind of linking. Yeah, it's an interesting 3.
Hopefully we'll see it again, but hopefully we won't, because they're not supposed to run into the... Well, who knows what's going to happen.
We can cut to Romulus and just have third-person narrative sort of stuff.
That's true. Anyway, guys, let us know your thoughts on this design down in the comments section. As always, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to click the notification bell icon so you can join us for our lives and check out any other videos we make, because we make a lot of content, and we love you guys.
And this last episode as well featured a lot of cool stuff, which we love doing. When they give us stuff, we can cover it. Amazing. So check out the full coverage of this last episode. There's a ton. And suppose if you can, if you like any of these individual videos, super thanks in the chat, in the comments, It's a like and super chat, but super thanks. It's a one-time after release thing. It's amazing. We love it. Or super chat during the lives, or monthly on Patreon, or join the channel on YouTube, or one time again, but on PayPal, which goes towards show costs at trekyards@hotmail.com. All are amazing. All are thanked. We thank you. If you can't, hey, just keep watching, but if you can, we thank you in advance.
That's right. So until next time, guys, he's Commander Cockings.
He's got a Foley.
I'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.